Good morning, mathematicians. We are looking at Lesson 7, multi-step conversion problems with customary length. This cooldown is about a whiteboard's width. Our prompt says the whiteboard is 4.5 feet in width, or 4 5/10. Now, notice with this prompt, we are seeing the width in feet. That is the key for us to notice that our unit is changing. So here it's reported in feet. Now in number one says how many inches wide is the whiteboard. We will explain or show our reasoning. And number 2 says how many yards wide is the whiteboard. Explain or show your reasoning. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to think about what are our reference measures here. What are those reference measures that we're going to need to consider? So the first thing I need to know is if I have 1 foot, how many inches is that? We will use this relationship for number 1. Well, we know that there are 12 inches in a foot. We're going to use that reference relationship for number 1. For number 2, we need to know if we have 1 yard, how many feet is that? Well, we know that in 1 yard, there are 3 feet. We will use that reference relationship for number 2. So I love to see those reference relationships written out because if you know those, that's like the key to solving number 1 and number 2. So let's now jump into number 1. How many inches wide is the whiteboard? So if we have 4.5 or 4 5/10 feet, but we need to know how many inches that is, we are going to need to multiply by 12. This is going to tell us how many inches wide the whiteboard is, right? Well, there are a couple ways that we can multiply, but what I want to show first is I can take 4.5 or 4 5/10. I could multiply the 4 by 12 first, right? Then I could multiply the 1/2 times 12, and I could add both of those together, right? So 4 times 12 is 48, and what is 1/2 of 12? Well, that's 6. So if I have 48 and I add 6 to it, that is 54. So what does that tell us? That tells us that there are 54 inches in the width of the whiteboard. Now, this is a great strategy if you see it, separating that 4.5 and multiplying the whole number 4 by 12 and the half by 12. That's one great strategy. Some of our students, as I look at our cooldown work, some of us have taken 4.5 and have multiplied it by 12 like this. When they do this, the first thing that they do is pretend like we are multiplying 45 times 12. Then once we get our answer to this, then they go back and multiply that by 1/10. Okay, we're going to go ahead and try that strategy right now. This strategy is multiplying 45 times 12. Then once I have this answer, then I multiply by 1/10. Okay, that's our second strategy that I'm going to show right here. So here we're going to be multiplying by 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Here's my 0, carry my 1. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 is 9. I know that 45 times 2 is 90. Now I'm going to cross off my 2, I'm going to cross off my 1, and I'm going to multiply by 1 after putting down my dun-dun-dun golden 0. Well, 45 times 1 is 45, so now I'm ready to add these two partial products together. And when I do this, I get to an answer of 540. But I'm not done. Because I treated these like they were whole numbers, I now have to go back and adjust and remember that really 1 was a decimal to the 10th place. So now I have to lose that 0 and this becomes 54. So either way, I'm getting to an answer of 52 inches, right? Now I have shown my work. And I have shown my work very well. In fact, I even showed it with 2 different strategies, which you did not have to do, but I wanted all of us to be able to see our work today and check our work today, regardless of which of these strategies you have chosen. But now I am going to go ahead and just write out my answer to make it clear. I know that the board is 54 inches in width. And once again, remember what I did was I took 4 5/10 times 12, and that equaled 54. And I've shown my work above in 2 ways, so I feel that is sufficient for today to explain or show my reasoning. And I'm ready to go on to number 2. I love these questions. Number 2 says, how many yards wide is the whiteboard? Explain or show your reasoning. First of all, boys and girls, yards are bigger than feet. So if I am communicating the exact same length, it's going to take less feet, or excuse me, it's going to take less yards to express that same length than it does in feet, right? If we're using a larger unit, we don't need as many of them in order to show the same distance. So here we started with the idea that we had 4 5/10 feet. Oops, let me switch back. Here we go. We have 4 5/10 feet. But now I don't need as many units, so I'm going to be dividing to figure out how many yards I need to measure the same distance, and it has a relationship of what? It has a relationship of 3. So I'm going to be dividing by 3 to get to my answer. Once I have my answer, this will be the measure of how many yards it takes to communicate that 4 5/10 inches. Okay? Now, and let's see. Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to need to do here. Okay. Now, we have this idea of 4 5/10 being divided by 3. I'm going to show, once again, 2 different ways that we can go about doing this. The first is, if I have 4 5/10, I know that there is a 3 and that there is a 1 5/10, because 3 plus 4, or 1 5/10, gives me all of this 4 5/10, right? I've really just broken it into 2 parts, the 3 wholes, and then 1 5/10. But that uses up all 4 5/10. Now the reason I like to do that at this moment is because both of those, with mental math, I can divide by 3 and get to my answer. This is a great way to divide with decimals when you have friendly problems like this. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now, if I have 1 1/2 and I break 1 1/2 into 3 groups, that's 3 halves, because a half and another half and another half is 1 1/2. So I know that really here I have 1/2 and here I had 1. So together, 1 1/2. Now that 1 1/2 equals what? That 1 1/2 equals how many yards are in 4 5/10 feet. So that is one strategy that you can utilize, and that many of us have utilized, in order to get to your answer of how many yards. Now, another strategy that you can do, and some of us did this, is we remembered that first number is our dividend. Our second number is our divisor. Here, I can divide. I could ask myself, well, how many times will 3 go into 4? How many times will 3 go into 4? How many groups of 3 can I get from 4? I can get one of them, right? Now, that, of course, gives me a difference of 1. And if I have this 5, now how many times will 3 go into 15? Well, it will go in 5 times. And 5 times 3 is 15, so there's no remainder. And I had this decimal here. So I'm going to rocket that decimal straight up, and my decimal will be right here in my quotient. So once again, I've gotten to that exact same answer of 1 1/2 yards. So the last thing that I need to do, just to make sure I'm very thorough, I have shown my work, which of course it says to explain or show your reasoning. I have shown my work, and I have definitely made sure that that work was very clear as I solved it. But let's go ahead and relate it back to the prompt. So I'm going to say that the board is 1.5 or 1 5/10 yards. But now I'm going to write out exactly what I did. I did 4 5/10 or 4.5, and I divided that by 3, and of course that equaled 1.5. So once again, boys and girls, these very last sentences that I typed out are very simple. They're just a restate of exactly what the board is in the dimension that I had to convert to. Boys and girls, this finishes out this lesson 7 cool down.